Hello there, I'm Birthright News, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Trump. Donald Trump, who's trying to end birthright citizenship and what that actually means, and how the UK actually deals with citizenship and how it differs to what's happening in the United States. So, as usual, I'll read from my notes. I hope it doesn't alienate you, but it's what I need to do in order to keep things concise and I don't go off track. So, in January 2025, President Trump signed Executive Order 14160, titled Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship. It attempts to end automatic birthright citizenship for children born in the US if neither parent is a US citizen or lawfully permanent resident, i.e., a green card holder. It would also cover children born to parents present on temporary visas, student, tourist work, etc. The Trump administration argues that the phrase in the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, does not automatically include children born to parents who are in the country unlawfully or temporarily. Their position is that those parents are not fully subject to US civil and legal jurisdiction in the sense intended by framers. Can you see how intricate his mind is? And that's one thing with the English language. It's open to loopholes, it's open to investigations, it's open to refining the words and making sure they say exactly what was meant at the time. So opponents say the order violates 150 years of constitutional tradition, statute and judicial precedent. They maintain that virtually everyone born on US soil has automatically been entitled to citizenship, regardless of parental status. Because lower courts have blocked enforcement of the order, citing constitutional and legal concerns, the matter has now reached the Supreme Court, which agreed to hear the case. That makes this potentially a landmark case shaping US citizenship law. Imagine a child born in the United States believing they're American. The law says something extraordinary. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, that's the key word, are citizens of the United States. It's the 14th Amendment etched in the Constitution. It promises that a child born on US soil, regardless of who their parents are, can call themselves America. But now that promise is under challenge. The US Supreme Court has agreed to hear cases questioning whether children born to parents who are undocumented or only temporarily present should really be considered citizens. It's like a drama, isn't it? So what does subject to the jurisdiction thereof mean? At first glance, it seems simple. You're in the United States, the laws apply to you, but the phrase is more layered. One interpretation supported by legal scholars and long-standing precedent is broad. Anyone physically present on US soil except for children of foreign diplomats or occupying armies falls under the law's jurisdiction. That's how America has historically treated generations of children born to immigrants, whether their parents came legally or not. Another interpretation, the one pushed by Trump administration, is narrower. It argues that parents who are in the country unlawfully or temporarily aren't fully subject to US jurisdiction, and therefore their children shouldn't automatically inherit citizenship. Wow. This is a big one for the legal people, isn't it? Ethically, this raises profound questions. Can the rights of a child who has no choice in where or to whom they are born hinge entirely on their parents' legal status? And what does that mean for fairness, for belonging, for the very idea of who counts as American? So this isn't really a human interest. This is really about law, isn't it? It's the legal definition. Forget about what we think. Across the Atlantic, the United Kingdom handles things differently. They're being born on British soil doesn't automatically make you British. A child born in the UK only becomes a citizen if at least one parent is a British citizen or settled in the UK, meaning they have indefinite leave to remain. The system designed to link nationality to parental status rather than accident of birthplace. So let's take a real life example. Say your mother was a British citizen when you were born, but she gained citizenship later after you were a teenager. Unfortunately, in the UK, that doesn't mean you automatically became a citizen at birth. You may be eligible to register as a British citizen under certain conditions, but the law treats your nationality differently from someone born to a parent who was already settled. It's a subtle distinction, but one that can profoundly affect identity, rights, and belonging. Back in the US, the stakes are enormous. The Supreme Court's decision could affect hundreds of thousands of children born to undocumented immigrants or temporary residents. These are children who, by all moral and ethical measures, have lived their entire lives as Americans. They go to school here, speak the language, dream the dreams, and yet their legal status could suddenly be questioned. Donald Trump and his supporters argue that birthright citizenship incentivizes illegal immigration and dilutes the value of American citizenship. Critics see it differently. Removing birthright citizenship could create a class of stateless children trapped in legal limbo and threaten the very notion of equal rights from birth. For families, the implications are deeply human. The emotional weight is enormous. Citizenship is not just a legal category. It's a claim to safety, identity, and opportunity. It's a declaration, you belong. In the UK, the approach feels more controlled, but no less consequential. Children born to non-citizen, non-settled parents can face barriers to nationality, and navigating registration processes can be daunting, even decades later. That means a teenager or a young adult might suddenly realise that their connection to the country they grew up in isn't guaranteed by birth alone. Both systems are different, confront the same ethical tension. How do we balance the law, the intentions of lawmakers, and the rights of children who have no say in the circumstances of their birth? As the US Supreme Court prepared to hear arguments, families across the country watch hearts in their throats, hoping that the law will honour not only the letter of the Constitution, but the spirit of fairness. And as people here in the UK reflect on our own system, the question is equally pressing. What does it mean to truly belong to a place where you were born, grew up, and have become accustomed to? If the Supreme Court upholds a challenge, it could rewrite a foundational principle of American citizenship, what it means to be American by birth. It could impact hundreds of thousands of US-born children annually, especially those born to undocumented immigrants or temporary visa holders, potentially revoking their automatic entitlement to citizenship. That could lead to statelessness, family separations, legal limbo, and social upheaval, raising serious ethical questions about fairness, children's rights, due process, and the identity of successive generations. It could also reshape immigration's incentives and demographics in the US with uncertain long-term consequences. Citizenship is more than a piece of paper. It's a promise, sometimes fragile, sometimes fiercely defended, that every child born within a nation's borders has a stake in its future. And as these conversations unfold, the stories of real children, their hopes, fears, and families remind us that the law is not just abstract words. It touches lives, shapes identities, and defines what it means to belong. And that's where we are now, because so many children who are born in the country, and I bet a lot of those are what we are being considered illegal immigrants now, because if their parents didn't register them, even though they're born in the country, they could be considered illegal immigrants or categorized. Well, they would be categorized as illegal immigrants until they're registered. And then what happens if their parents have passed on without registering them? Can you imagine the process of trying to establish that you are or should be a citizen? So that's the dilemma we face in America and in the UK to a point, and we'll have to see how this story unfolds, and I hope you found it